Oh, Siloam.
Later on, King Hezekiah will build another tunnel lower, and the outcome of it will be what? The law, it's a physical law. Do you see what I'm telling? This is Hezekiah. What happened is pulling the water downward. The water is going here today, and this is dry.
Oh,
Hezekiah is finishing his tunnel in that direction. You see the steps leading up? Behind it, you see the minaret? At the bottom of it, Hezekiah's tunnel is coming out of the rock. And from there, it continued this way to the original pool of Siloam, into the king's garden. First temple for draining sewer from up there down below to the Kidron Valley. And in the process, as they scooped one too many. And as they scooped one too many, they found the steps on which you are situated. And he and his crew, together with the archaeologists, started digging and see how wide. This is the width from here to here and going down to the bottom. And the rest, some 90%, is still covered because this is owned by the Greek Orthodox. And at the moment, they don't want to cooperate. This is the width. How big it would be if the length is still mostly filled in with the soil. So use your imagination. All of this Second Temple period. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Book of Acts also mentions something about 3,000 people that will listen and will be convinced and will be changed. And not less important and earlier, to the pool of Siloam, where Yeshua from Nazareth is coming, and one of the people who'll find over here, and there could be many because look how big it is. It's a water source for laundry, for whatever, not for drinking, for all the needs of Jerusalem. And he's coming over here, taking a little bit of the earth, and a little bit of spittle, and a blind fellow can see. Ladies and gentlemen, this fellow is involved in that. And I'll come to him later on, but I think you have the urge to read something now.
This story is told in the ninth chapter of the Gospel of John. And this, it says, now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? We still think today that every time we see some problem like physically that somebody did something to cause it. And we often say ourselves, I wonder what I did to cause that. Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. In other words, Jesus said, I'm leaving a blind man today. He needs our blindness, he needs our problem, so that he can show the glory of God. After he healed this man, listen to what happened. In verse 11 it says, he answered and said, a man called Jesus. They said, who healed you? He said, a man called Jesus. He didn't know who healed him. Sometimes people say you have to have a lot of faith in order to be healed. He didn't know who Jesus was. He said, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and I received my sight. That's what he said in verse 11. So they give a lot of talking. They talk with his parents, and then they go back and they say, well, others have asked how you could be saved. And down in verse 18, or 17 rather, they said to the blind man again, this is the second time they've asked him, he said, a man called Jesus, heal me. And they said to the man again, what do you say about him because he opened your eyes? he said he is a prophet. See, he's progressing in his understanding. He's a man called Jesus. Now he's calling him a prophet. He has to be somebody unusual. Prophets walked with God. They thought with the mind of God. They acted with the power of God. And after all of the experience of being turned out of the synagogue because he was faithful to Jesus, down in verse 38, they said to him, or the people began to say to him after he'd been excommunicated, well, who do you say that healed you? And in verse 38, he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. He started out with saying he was a man. The second step, he was a prophet in verse 17, and in verse 38, he recognized him as Lord. So the more you get to know him, the more wonderful he becomes. And he told him to go to the pool of Siloam and wash. He took spittle, put it on the man's eyes, told him to come to the pool of Siloam and wash. And here's where he came. Isn't that great?
So, ladies and gentlemen, you were in the footsteps of Jesus today, at least in 3 places. On the corridor, as that group came from the north. On the steps that will be leading into the Temple Mount. And now over here at the pool of Siloam. And you're just on the edge of it. And you can imagine how big it must have been. A central project in the city.